Hey guys, this is Down Phoenix, and I decided to do a little comparison video. Um, this is dedicated to the folks at Next Gen Wars. Some of them telling me that the SNES version of Aladdin is superior to the Genesis version, and I'm just going to show you that's not true, at least in most aspects. I mean, the SNES version does have some better things, such as the opening story, but the SNES version also kind of beats around the point with the opening story. It takes way too long with it. I mean, seriously, the opening cutscene is longer than the first stage, and you'll see in a little bit, because we're first going to take a look at the Genesis version of the game. Now, of course, a lot of people diss the Genesis for its graphical capabilities, but this is definitely one of the better looking Genesis games out there. And in my opinion, this game fits the look of the movie a lot better than the Super Nintendo version too. Not to say that the Super Nintendo version looks poor or anything. Overall, the graphics are, somewhat better, but I like the animation, of the characters, and just the look of the characters in this a lot better. I think the backgrounds look a little bit more like they do in the movie too. Just the SNES has, better technicalities. Now, the controls are pretty good in both versions. That was kind of like my failing as far as slipping off the thing there. But anyways, one thing you'll notice here is Aladdin's got his sword, which is important to note because in the Super Nintendo version you don't fight with the sword, but you do in the Genesis version. Also, the apples are a lot more plentiful and useful in the Genesis version, as they actually can kill enemies, whereas they just stun them in the Genesis version. Or the Super Nintendo version, whatever. Both of them quite similar in some aspects, though, of course, like these gem collecting and all that. But, I mean, you'll get to notice here a lot of the enemies and such, are very similar in both games. Nuts. But look at that, though. I mean, this game, I just prefer it over the Super Nintendo version. Part of the reason is because of the humor. I don't know if you noticed that his pants actually dropped before that second apple hit. It's just a kind of a split-second thing. The character voiceovers are about the same, really, in these games. Watch, you'll get to see it now. See, this game's got something the Super Nintendo version does not have, and it's the humor from the movie, which that's probably my favorite thing about this game. It captures the movie better in terms of how they act and everything. Plus, one thing to note, this theme song that you're listening here, that's actually in the movie. The one in the Super Nintendo version is not from the movie. In fact, it's rather generic sounding for a Super Nintendo song, which is kind of disappointing because Capcom actually handled the Super Nintendo version, while Sega did this version. And everybody knows Sega's platformers like Sonic, but this is right up there with the Sonic games, in my opinion, at least in my opinion. Now, one thing to note here is that the Super Nintendo version has climbing, which you don't get that in the Genesis version, which is kind of a pain in the butt. But you see that golden token right there with the I forgot the stupid monkey's name, but anyways, the monkey is kind of useless in both games, but you can actually play as the monkey in bonus stages in this one. Also, you can use the gems to spend on items like the 1-ups, and then the wish is like a continue, pretty much. So, we're pretty much up to the end of the stage, if I'm not mistaken. Not sure how it is. The stages are a little bit longer, but they're one-parters in this one, whereas in the Super Nintendo they're multi-parts for the stage. So yeah, the level is complete. You got a little bonus game at the end. You get to spin the little genie tokens, and then if you get that, you lose. No surprise. Now, these bonus stages, they're actually pretty cool. I like them. Plus, the music for this bonus stage is really good for a Genesis game. Genesis games have really good music, in my opinion. despite having an inferior sound processor. Which it does, I guess, but it seems like everybody that does good music on the Genesis knew how to utilize it. Pretty much the point is supposed to keep from getting hit by these pods, and then you can get like extra items at the end, like that 1-up, except I failed, so whatever. Anyways, we're gonna move on to the Super Nintendo version, so you can see kind of some of the differences, how they play out. Now, of course, you know, as I mentioned, Capcom does this version, the Super Nintendo version, and Sega did the Genesis version. The Capcom game actually came out first. I think it probably came out at the same time as the movie. The Genesis version came out after, probably around the same time as, you know, when the movie came out on video. And you could tell, like, you're listening to the music of this right now. It sounds like generic Super Nintendo music. Definitely not a highlight of the Super Nintendo music capabilities. You know, from games like Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, Donkey Kong Country, just to name a few, you know. But this storyline moves kind of slow. It's like they put it out for kids. Well, duh, it's a kids game. But, you know, they could have done it a little bit differently. Or, you know, at least some animation to the lamp. Now, of course, this next part actually has some really good animation. See the little dragonfly? A lot better looking than the Genesis version. Or dragonfly, scarab, whatever. You know, some animated cutscenes. Now, this part's pretty cool here. Watch this. That was pretty well done, I thought. And, you know, it's not like all the music in the game's bad. Some of these tunes, like this one here, kind of fits the theme, the Arabic theme of the game. Persian theme, I don't know, whatever. Would Aladdin be considered Arabic or Persian? Anybody know? So, anyways, yawn. This cutscene takes forever. You cannot speed it up. You can't, like, hold a button to speed it up or anything. You can press start to skip it all, but that's about it. A humble thief, yeah. Like, a thief can really be humble. You know, I'm a thief, I'm humble. You know, I'm just gonna be real careful about who I steal from, I guess. And, is he like Robin Hood? He only steals from the rich or something? Like, that's supposed to be a humble thief, I guess. Apparently. But anyways, yeah, that guy obviously is taken out, so... You know, it's kind of cool how the story is presented in the Super Nintendo version. It's definitely a lot more cinematic, but the Genesis version follows the movie's plotline a little bit better. So we're going to go ahead and start. The options are pretty much the same as the Genesis version, so nothing to see there, really. You'll notice we don't have a sword here. We do have the apples, but that's how Aladdin deals with his enemies. He jumps on them. So they could have made it, you know, I mean, did Aladdin actually jump on anything in the movie? No. I mean, it's kind of cool, though. I mean, that they have these aspects, because you got the aspects like the climbing and things like that I mentioned, where you can climb on the ledges, which kind of give it like a Prince of Persia feel to it, I guess. But, yeah. And Aladdin can float with this cape, which is pretty cool. Or cape. Whatever. His bag, if you will. Now, you notice, I think it's Abu. Actually follows him around through the stage, but he's useless. He doesn't do anything. But his animation looks pretty cool. But Aladdin doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't look as good as in this Genesis version, because he's more generic looking. It's almost like Capcom made the game before they got the movie license, and they just decided, hey, we got this game that could be an Aladdin game, so we'll go ahead and just change the sprites up and all that. Which, that kind of thing actually happened back in the day, except kind of usually reverse. Whatever. Now, the whole swinging thing, this is actually pretty hard because you cannot change direction while you're on those. So you have to do those little short jumps and then change the direction. Which, watch, you have to... See, I have to do that. I cannot change direction while I'm swinging on it. So it's not as tight in controls as the Genesis version. Although, who's to say the Genesis version would control better if it had these aspects of the game either, so... The life bars are definitely a lot smaller. I wouldn't say this game is more difficult, though, but... I mean, I hope this can convince you guys the Genesis version is better. If not, well, Down Phoenix out.